It's the Exit 52 podcast, Thursday night, January 29th, 6:40 p.m. My name's Jake Louque, and I'm joined live from the Herd Studios somewhere outside of Chicago, Illinois. It's Hat Forward Spen. How are we doing tonight, Mr. Cowherd?
You know, thinking back to a time, I don't know, I can't do that great of a coward, but I'm a little heated to start this. I'll just get right into it off the bat. I had a long day. I've had a long week, and I want to pull up what Eric Costa wore to announce. I'm upset. I'm upset. I'm a little upset.
I'm
what
upset.
Eric Costa chose to wear to, and I think I have it, to, for our visual followers here, Eric Costa just casually strolling on out, wearing his little J. Crew outfit, a nice waffle terry cloth, the little J. Crew button up, probably something much nicer than that. But Eric, can we please put on a suit to announce Jesse Minter as the Baltimore Ravens head coach, please?
I know this is not apropos.
It's cold out. I get it. It's cold. It's chilly. You're cozy. Like hybrid season, work from home. You got tape to watch for the draft. Got to find an OC. I get that. I just want to get that. Like Colin Cowherd said, let's not put the backwards hat on. That's insane. But I'm going to go insane and say, Eric, can we put on a suit for the love of God to announce the fourth head coach in Baltimore Ravens history?
Apropos of nothing, like this is, and it just hit me. We were kind of talking about this before we got going. I actually sort of I threw you up the alley-oop there for the Cowherd comparison. So you got your herd background going on there. It's just now hitting me. That's exactly how you dress. Like that's something I could see you wearing. Like
that's why I'm mad, because I would have worn a suit. That's my exact style. What Eric was wearing is like that is an outfit that I own pretty much, and that's why I'm mad.
You're giving me some Tim Robinson vibes there. It's my exact style.
That's my exact style. And Eric, let's put on a suit. And you know who had a suit on? Jesse Minter, the fourth head coach in Baltimore Ravens history. Stevie B's got a suit on. Sashi, who Stevie always calls Sasha with a little at the end. Sash has a suit on. Stevie's got a suit on. Jesse's got a suit on. We get it, Eric. You're cool. You're calm. You're collected. You're just cozy, just extra handsome. Head's extra shaved today. And yeah, we got Mike McDaniel wearing Bottega jackets to do his press conference. Come on, Eric. Let's step it up a little bit here.
You know who else I'm reminded of is your boy Jimmy Gladstone down in Jacksonville, who you were just smitten with at the combine last year when he's wearing his little, workwear $10,000, like whoever it might be, like who I think like Steve Madden or whatever, one of these very fashion forward kind of hip designers right now. You were all over our boy Jimmy Gladstone for that. So to see you heel turn against Eric Costa, and I know the context of the hiring the head coach is a big deal, but it's quite a situation.
It's a situation, and I was especially disappointed because there's a little bit of buzz going on whenever there's a big event at the castle. Like seeing Jesse Minter walk in, the Ravens are releasing like promo videos. Jesse Minter walks in, they have all employees at the castle wrapped around. He makes a little speech. He's got his face up on the screen. And anytime you get to highlight the beauty of the 200-year-old seeming country club, the dark mahogany halls of One Winning Drive in Owings Mills, Maryland, contrasted by Eric's leisure wear, I'll call it, just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm up in arms overall.
That's good. I'm glad we're starting off on a positive note here for the fourth head coach hire in Baltimore Ravens history. The guy goes out there, he's talking about his grand dream being achieved and all the people that has inspired him and how he's excited to work with the best player in the world. And you're just seething, you're just fixated on the man sitting next to him wearing some, workwear jacket that he probably got for 5 figures. It's incredible.
I didn't love some of Eric's comments today either, which we'll get to. I'm going full Cowherd here. And didn't love some of his comments. This press conference, I'll say it, was a little bit of a snooze fest. Gets halted early. I wasn't thrilled or tickled pink as much as I was. And you made a great point, Jake. We'll get into the individual clips. There were some good bits. But we did just get the crown jewel of press conferences for an NFL and American professional sports organization with Steve and Eric doing, full season 4 of The Sopranos, 22 episodes. Maybe it's season 5, whichever one's the longer one. They give us a full session and they kind of reined it back in. It felt like a little bit today. It was maybe 35 minutes, something like that, 40 minutes, a little bit briefer. And yeah, Steve wasn't up there given the ones and twos. And Cody McGowan here says tough to follow the Steve B presser. So
this one also, like, if I could be crass for a minute, this one was always going to be a bit of a hand job. Like, they're bringing in the new guy. It's like the celebratory vibes, like who inspired you, this great organization that you're coming to. Steve had to go up there, and Eric too, and they had to answer for some stuff, and they did. And like that, they were frank and candid, and that's why it was as well received as it was. This one was always going to be a little bit more of a PR operation.
Agreed, and probably for the best. First time head coach, have him come in, keep it calm, cool, collected, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, and that all makes sense to me. But there was a couple little tidbits in there that, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way. It doesn't really matter. You can chalk it up to non-football stuff, but it's winter, it's 3 degrees outside, and non-football stuff circles to the surface.
Yeah, a couple things I was going to say. That I think a lot of us just have cabin fever. Like I have been trapped in my house since Sunday with a sinus infection. Just awful job by the county, just not plowing our street correctly. So I was putting in absolute shifts on Sunday, just getting through the snow. Everything was fine on my sidewalk, but as far as the street went, nope, couldn't get that cleared out. So I had to wait until today to go out there. Finally, hopefully getting over this, but hopefully my voice has a little bit of a, vintage kind of radio caster vibe to it. But I think that's part of what's got us a little stir crazy. That might've been what had you a little hot and bothered, if I had to guess. And then, yeah, it's, again, you were kind of talking about some non-football stuff there. And you always love to kind of rein me and some other people in by saying it's not football. Now it's my turn.
There we go.
Another
non-football thing. Jesse Minter doesn't blink, and it kind of came to me. We were floating about with the Nate Bargatze, but also kind of reminds me of one bug-eyed actress from Amazon Prime's Fallout, starring one Walton Goggins. Has a little bit of that, a little bit of those eyes. I tweeted that out.
Well, you mentioned bug eyes there. You're making me think of Ella Purnell, who might be like my 1-1, like literally might be the hottest woman in the world, in my opinion.
You love Fallout. You love the game. You love the show. That contributes. I'll give you that one. So yeah, Minter doesn't blink. In Mike Tomlin's words, cut your eyelids off. Don't blink. Jesse Minter doesn't need to do that. He simply doesn't. I think he blinked about 14 to 15 times over a 45-minute period. Laser focused. And biggest overall takeaway just from his vibe is that you can tell how much of a player's coach he is. And I don't mean it in like, oh, do whatever you want kind of way. Like, players just gravitate to him. And I think that younger energy, you could just even see it. Jimmy Smith, Ray Rice, a couple active players, bunch of guys in the house, Maurice Kennedy, Terrence West, Chris Carr, Jermaine Lewis, bunch of guys in the house. They were chomping at the bit to go dap Jesse up. He's been here before. They're familiar with him. A good bit of those guys are familiar with him. And I think players really gravitate to him. And one of the things that was talked about, we'll get into, but that players just really love his guidance, seek his personality, his energy, and his coaching overall. So I don't know that reflected so much today in the words that were spoken into microphones, but I think in the body language of the players that were there and the comments that former players have made, and seeing the Chargers kind of go with the same route that Minter and McDonald did, leased out, pimped out their ascending defensive mind to the college football ranks, get some play calling experience, and Minter is replaced by Chris O'Leary, who we do know the Ravens were really keen on. Minter was really keen on to be their defensive coordinator, ends up getting his own shot to call his own defense. So a lot there. A lot of, I think, the non-microphone stuff came through a little bit. We've got Steve running around with Jamison Hensley. We've got some fun going on. So it was a calm day. Seemed like it was a fun day. It was a little different than what I was expecting, I think, overall, but we can get into it.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely a little subdued, I think, in some ways. But ultimately, like, I think we talked about this on the podcast a week ago tonight when he got hired. Like, that might be a little bit of what this team needs right now. Like, we've had all the fire and brimstone and the speeches and the, God has our back and smearing blood on our foreheads and, dancing around the locker room. Like, and you might get a little bit of that fire out of Minter from some of the clips we've seen of him at Michigan, waving at Ohio State and stuff. Like, he might have a little bit of that fire to him, but he seems like he strikes the vibe as a little bit more of a teacher, right? A little bit more of just a football coach. Like, I'm just here, and we're going to get into like his role as far as being an actual coach on this team. But it seems like things are going to be a little more simple, and they're going to be a little more pared down, and it's going to be about just football, like we've been talking about, which I like a lot. I think we needed to get away from like, this is the biggest thing ever. This is like life and death. This is, your family, your religion, the Green Bay Packers. Like, let's just bring it all down into, exactly what we're doing, which is playing a children's game.
Agreed. And get it back to football. The pressure that we had discussed, I think, overwhelmed Todd Monken, John Harbaugh, the Ravens organization, the players, and I think it started with that Bills game. So the pressure feels released. It feels calm. Steve and Eric did their mea culpa, their big, shiny, veiny, triumphant bastard of a press conference to put it all out there, and now they can probably rein it back in. And we see Chad Steele call this one a little early and back to their ways after a nice, deep sigh and a shoulder shrug and letting go of some of the things that held them back. So a new era. And frankly, man, like, I don't know. Love Jesse Minter. I think he was the best coach this cycle. It just had to be a change. And I think the simple fact that something has changed in this stable organization could be enough to inject a lot of energy, inject a lot of passion again, get back to just being football, like you just said, Jake, and overall try and get back to Super Bowl status, being the team. Like, it's just thinking back, and I was thinking of watching some old playoff games and stuff over this past week, and Torrey Smith's in the house and some of these other guys in the house, and Ravens Giants, a lot of clips coming up for the anniversary Ravens Giants Super Bowl, and talking about the dominant Seattle defense and comparing them to kind of the dominant defenses that have played in Super Bowls, like that 2000 Ravens defense, and just trying to get back to being the villain in the playoffs, the evil team that you don't want to play. It feels like the Ravens turned into a self-imploding time bomb that you were kind of happy to play against, but a little bit nervous to play against. And it used to be, trying to bring a knife to a gunfight when you played the Ravens. They were more physical. They were more prepared. They took care of the football. They took the football away. They hurt you. They hurt your pride, bruised your ego. And they've done that more than to themselves lately. So I think this change can get back to that, get back to the roots. And man, a big shift. And that shift we can kind of pull up some clips here and go through some of the tidbits of. But overall, exciting time, and feels good to be back to normal a little bit. Ravens still need to hire an offensive coordinator. We've been waiting a little bit. Jake, you wanted to do a deeper dive into Minter. We kind of waited to today. I was hoping they would hire an OC by now. Not really sure what's going on with that, but Minter did have some comments we'll get into about what he's seeking. And they talked about the OC a little bit today too.
They're gonna lure Clint Kubiak over. That's my prediction. They're just waiting.
Just lure him on over.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying there, it's all well said, and I think it dovetails well into one of the first clips that I pulled, of Jesse talking about the general approach that he's going to take here with this team.
I think building a really cohesive team, that all the work that you do leads to being successful in those opportunities. So I think we will create standards that match the goals that we want to achieve, and then work every day tirelessly to get to that point. Our plan will be built on being at our best late in the season, into the playoffs, and look forward to that challenge.
So, there's with a lot of these, there's going to be a lot of fluff that you're going to have to dig through. Obviously, like we talked about, bit of an HJ, an OTP HJ of a press conference here. But yeah, I did like what he had to say at the end there about playing their best when they're entering the playoffs. And I think that's something that the Ravens have kind of talked about a little bit in the past couple of years. But as the playoff failures kind of piled up, the pressure to actually execute on that got higher and higher, and they just weren't able to live up to that. So maybe with a fresh start here and with a new voice, they actually can start to do those things.
Yeah, it's bringing a calmness, and I just laugh because the Ravens the last few years have tried to force calmness on themselves, and it hasn't worked, and it's been volatile in game, on the field. The explosive off-script plays that Lamar Jackson generates. We've talked about how I think this offense in particular has tried to imitate their quarterback and is a reflection of their quarterback in ways, while he is the one who is most spectacular and gifted. And, I hate the word instincts, but I think he is one of the chosen few that at the NFL level, his instincts are what separate him and enable him to make plays like ducking, dodging, and barreling through two Steelers pass rushers that are much larger than him to go launch a ball 50 yards downfield after kind of pushing the envelope there. He's the one that has the instinct that can step on the field and be a natural-born playmaker on a field of natural-born playmakers. Like, that's why I hate the word instinct. At the NFL level, they've all got instincts. Like, they were all the best for the most part on their high school team. They were the one that you put the football in their hand, and they made everyone else look silly. So I think calming it down, getting back to a more, I don't know, like everyone gets so up in arms when you look at the early Lamar Jackson years. You talk about Roman, and they did have issues in the playoffs, and they did get volatile. But just something Minter talked about, I think on the Pat McAfee show, controlling the game, controlling the football on the offensive side of the ball, helping their defense out, and not something especially, I would say that was the worst aspect of the 2025 Ravens was how short their drives were offensively and how much their defense was on the field. So that kind of killed them in ways. They couldn't get off the football field and they couldn't sustain drives. There was a lot of explosive drives and a lot of quick failed drives. And I think that's something Minter addressed 3 times between this press conference and Pat McAfee. And in the year 2026, we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl with 2 defensive head coaches who like to control the football, run heavier personnel, and not get off the field. So we've seen the cyclical nature has, as we predicted, Jake, in the time we've been on this show, 2 things that are on about a 7 to 9 year cyclical average are mortgage interest rates and football going from being a offense dominated, high flying, spread passing attack to back to running the football, playing defense, hard hitting, physical, hard nosed, all those things. So rates are high and running the football is back in vogue. In a couple years, rates will be low and the ball is going to be getting pushed over top. So that's that'll be my thesis for my non-existent football mortgage university there.
Rates might be coming down. If too late, we'll get off his recliner there and start to do something about it. Maybe the NFL needs their version of too late.
Some comments today. We want to keep housing prices high. Okay, thank you. So I would beg the question, whatever, let's get into the Minter press conference, but I would beg the question, are the Ravens too late on hiring a defensive coach? And also, one of my favorite things that's been floating around on Twitter, Ravens are getting a defensive coach again, which I've said Harbaugh is a defensive coach for years, but I thought he wasn't. I thought he was a special teams guy. So when did they have this defensive coach then? Was it Harbaugh? Or was he a special teams guy and Brian Billick before him was an offensive guy? So he
was a defensive backs coach for a long time. I think he was only a special teams guy, like technically for like 1 or 2 years, if I'm not fully mistaken there.
I think he had like 5 cumulative years. Not to make this the Harbaugh show on a show about Jesse Minter in his press conference, but I think he had special teams 1 year and secondary at Morehead State. He was a coordinator of special teams at Cincinnati for 7 years. Indiana, he was special teams coordinator and DB's coach. And then he did a long tenure on the Eagles, 8 years as the special teams coordinator, 1 year as the defensive backs coach. The last year before he was hired by the Ravens, he was a defensive backs coach. But I think he had about 15 years of experience on special teams and about 10 either being dually involved in the DBs or secondary with some running backs, some tight ends, and some linebackers mixed in. So, I mean, he coached everything, man.
And it is funny.
Didn't coach quarterbacks, didn't coach receivers, didn't coach line, but running backs, tight ends, linebackers, secondary, DBs, a lot of it.
Well, that also goes to show you, like, your team identity doesn't have to be your head coach's background necessarily. Like, everyone's like, oh, the Ravens and their defensive history. You're like, Marchibroda was an offensive guy. Billick was a big offensive guy. Like, that was his whole thing. And then everyone's like, oh, this great 2000 Ravens defense, Brian Billick. Like, that was just as much our boy Marvin Lewis and, some of the coaches that came after him that were coordinating that defense. So, we'll see what happens. Again, we'll talk a little bit later on about Jesse and who he hires for the offensive side of the ball. But as much as he is going to be dialed in on the defense, this could very well remain just as much of an offensive team. And obviously the hope is they'll be great at both, but I guess we'll have to wait and see with that.
Well said.
Speaking of the second thing that I wanted to bring up, there's been a lot made about his sort of relationship with Lamar Jackson's, Jesse Minter, that is. and sort of how, like, I don't know. It's hard to like exactly like. I'm confused by like, oh, they had this great relationship when Minter was here originally, when he was here 2017 through 2020. It's like, what does that mean? Well, Lamar was running his scout team and all of that stuff. And I don't know, there's been the conversations of like, is Lamar going to sit in on the interviews? I think it's come out now that he did not come up for in person, but he was involved in the Zoom aspect of it. Here's Minter himself kind of speaking on the conversations that they've had thus far.
Had multiple conversations. It's been great. It's been great to get to know him. I think relationships take time, and so you don't become the head coach of the Ravens and expect to have a deep relationship with anybody. So those take time. We've been working towards that already. We've had wonderful conversations. Look forward to many more. But Lamar, I just look forward to connecting with him, helping him become the best version of himself, creating a team identity that allows him to thrive, which he's already proven to be an elite, one of the best player in the National Football League, and put a team around him that allows him to reach that ultimate goal of bringing a Super Bowl back to Baltimore.
One thing that he keeps hitting on here across a lot of the media that he's done today, he's done it on McAfee today. He was on Cowherd today, actually. I don't know if you caught that for like a quick 10-minute hit. He keeps hitting the best football player in the world thing, which I think is really good. And I think he coaxed himself up on that. Like, I've got to hit that. Like, every time I talk about Lamar, I got to say the best football player in the world. But yeah, and then another buzzword that I keep hearing coming out of his mouth is connection and connecting, between people. So I don't know. It seems like there is going to be a good dynamic here. It's good to hear that they've already had multiple conversations, that they're setting that all up. Hopefully that doesn't drive too much of a wedge into Florio's Lamar conspiracy theories getting traded to the Raiders. I know he's been hot on that. He just has not been able to talk about anything else the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was good to hear.
To me, it's just, he's not bullshitting. There's no bullshit. He's not coming in being like, yeah, I mean, I know Lamar. Oh, he's not talking about how he was here 6 years ago and 7 years ago and 8 years ago. He is, as I like to say, alert, alive, awake, and not going to make shit up. And I think that in not just a football team of the professional orientation, but in business and in life, you want someone who, if they don't know the answer, they're not going to make it up and pretend like they know and you're wrong. And especially when it comes to players. So having that transparency is what players crave, that they are not going to have a coach, especially the head coach, that they can come to about scheme, about technique, and they don't have the answer, and they're going to make it up, and they're going to pretend like they know when they don't. And to me, that comment about Lamar Jackson goes to show that he's not trying to be something he's not. He's not trying to pretend he's something more than he is. He said, it takes time. I don't expect to come in here and have relationships with these guys when he knows some of them. He was here. So to have that humble accountability, I think, is why players probably desire his advice and coaching. And I think there's a lot of things he does know. You can see it on those mic'd ups with the Chargers that he did. They gravitate to him and his teachings and his coaching and his leadership as a football coach. And it's probably because he's not bullshitting them or pretending to be some holier than thou, grizzled Sean Payton, Bill Belichick. John Harbaugh probably got that way, I would imagine. I think he did a good job at not being that way despite tenure and despite success, but he certainly was more that way than when he was younger, I believe. And we saw that especially reflected in media. And I think the media overall, the people that were in that room were probably really happy to have someone other than John who kind of shut stuff down. I know a lot of those guys, Childs Walker, Jameson Hensley, a lot of those guys had grown so fond of John over the years. And some of them were like, wow, this is so freaking weird. Some of them were probably 28 years old. Now they're in their mid 40s. And John Harbaugh has been there the entire time they've been here or whatnot. But just having a different voice. And I think you can tell the differences there. And yeah, I made that joke on Twitter about Mike McDonald having his, Frodo Taste of the Ring on for the first time moment in Seattle, having a stadium full of people worship him and having that twinkle in his eye. And maybe the ego does start to grow like the Grinch's heart. But
he might have had some of your boy Timmy in Dune Part 2 raising the dagger to the Fremen, like in that moment. Like he the God King ascends in Mike McDonald.
I like that. I like that comparison. Certainly. Dune 2 chicks at the same time, as they say in Office Space. Whatever that character's name was.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence. Yeah.
Come over.
Yeah. So all of that to say, I don't think Jesse Minter's a bullshitter. And I think that'll be refreshing and probably stay that way for a bit.
Yeah, and if you're a veteran player, like, you can sniff that out pretty easily. Like, what's Lamar going to be entering year 8, year 9 at this point? Like, he's going to be able to see through all of that. And I think that's another thing that I liked that, and I think this was always going to happen, but I like that regardless of offense or defense, I'm glad they went with a younger guy who it's going to feel like, and we'll get into like the idea of it being a partnership between Minter and Costa, but it feels like it could be a partnership between him and Lamar. And that's why for example, with the Bills hiring Joe Brady, I like that for them because it gives them, or it gives Josh Allen even more agency to say like, hey, I am the face of the franchise, and I've got this guy who, yeah, I'm going to answer to, but I feel comfortable walking into his office and bouncing ideas off of. I feel like Lamar's definitely going to feel that way a little bit more. And I'm sure he like probably did with John here and there, but that's a little bit more of like a almost paternal relationship where this can be a little bit more fraternal. Like, it's your older brother versus like your dad. There's less of an intimidation factor there. And I feel like that's going to help them mesh well pretty early on.
Yeah. At the same time, I would add the comments that Derwin James and Tony Jefferson both made were clear. He is an alpha and the leader in that room, and he is respected and listened to. And I know one Barstool Banks had some comments about maybe some things about Jesse Minter physically that make him maybe not like intimidating or what you would expect. And I've loved to talk about Harbaugh in the gym at 5:30, doing hack squats and steel cables around his 63-year-old neck doing pull-ups and all that stuff. And it sounds like Minter is a big dog still, and it's not to be twisted that he's some easygoing, laissez-faire, not psycho. And I think, we got Matt Miz here says, the Twitter folks say he's an NPC. And I think you can, I think that's what the vibe you kind of get is that he's really calm, but then I think you see him with the players and it's a different beast.
Yeah, but he's like the NPC that gives you like the best side quest or like has all the best gear that you like have to seek out. Like if you're playing Fallout, it's like, oh, I got to go find this guy in Dogtown or whatever. And like, he's going to give me the upgrade for my Pip-Boy or whatever. That's going to like help me beat the game. Like, that's what I'm looking for here. Like they don't need, I said this to Brian in the chat, like they don't need a cheerleader. They don't need a mascot. Like they need a coach. They need a guy who's dialed in schematically. Let's move away from the non-football stuff, as a smart man once said. And I feel like that's what we're doing here.
Amen.
Speaking of that, Minter did confirm that he's in fact going to be calling the defensive plays this season.
Do you plan on calling the defense? Great question. I think that's a strength of mine. I think that's one of the reasons I'm sitting here. But I also think it's my leadership qualities, and I really look forward. I have a really good process, I feel, to do what I need to do to be ready to call the game, but also have the ability to be the head coach and to impact the entire roster, the entire team, make sure that it's our offense, our defense, our special teams, and that there's no divide there, and I know that I'm in charge of all that. But it starts with the relationships with the people in the building, particularly the players, and I think they'll feel my competitiveness, they'll feel my mentality every day, and I think we'll work hand in hand together to build a great team.
And I love that idea of like, that's part of what got me the job here, but that's not the whole reason that I got the job. And yeah, we got Michael Collard in the comments here. If a guy like Derwin calls you an alpha, that says something. And that really did stand out to me too. Like Derwin James is a shit talker among the best of them. Like if you watch that guy on like Mic'd Up or even just on a TV copy, like you can see him jawing, you can see like the intimidating presence that he strikes. And for him to say that about Jesse Minter, who, yeah, Brian was right. He didn't cut like the most intimidating figure standing 2 feet, 2 heads below Nick Boyle there as they were lining up for the picture or anything like that. But to not cut that big intimidating stature and to have Derwin James of all people saying like, yeah, this guy's an alpha and I'd get behind that guy any day of the week. That's huge. And then, yeah, it's like his mind is kind of the sword, right? But then like he still has like the personality to lead a group of men. Like he wouldn't have gotten the job otherwise. So
he's a general, not in the infantry. So he's not the one playing the game. He's not the one that's got to block Garrett twice a year. He's the one that needs to put the team in place. Biggest thing from him calling plays, he makes the first comment, I don't think I would be here. Like that is why they brought him here. to get off the field on third down and get stops in the red zone and take the football away. Like, that is why Jesse Minter is the Baltimore Ravens coach. And the other side of that to me is he made comments like, I got to know what's going on with my offense still. That's hard to do when you're calling defense. I think it's hard to know what's going on with your defense when you're calling offense. It takes a real psycho. We've talked a lot about McVay recently. I think McVay is one of the best at being in tune with the other side of the ball while he's calling plays. I think that he really can stay locked in on game day on a sideline. I think that's one of his best traits, and can spend all that energy on that. So it is a huge energy spend. I would contest it makes it a lot more difficult to be locked in on that other side of the ball. And I have two schools of thought, two kind of diverting paths. And it's either that you need to hire an offensive coordinator that is experienced, that you fully trust, and don't need to handhold or babysit at all in any way, and they truly run that side of the football a lot while you have the vision of your team that you want, and you hire them for a reason and hold them accountable. But like on game day, you got to have a hot operation. Or the other is that, like you just said, Jake, and I look at Josh Allen, and I look at I saw some of Joe Brady's comments today that he can't wait to celebrate with the defense when they pick Josh Allen off in practice now. He can't wait to support the other side of the ball a little bit more now and dive deeper into the offense. And to me, that says like, hey, maybe this is also, you have a veteran franchise quarterback and some veteran guys on offense. You have a Hall of Fame running back, a decade left tackle, a decade tight end. Some of these guys and the players need to take more accountability, and this offense needs to run itself and have more leadership. And I think you can't point anywhere but Lamar. We'll see what happens with Tyler Linderbaum, who we've heard the players directly saying, like, if you hear offensive linemen interviewed or anyone interviewed kind of all season long, like, Tyler Linderbaum is the leader on that offensive line. And to me, that means he's the leader of the offense in many ways. Like, the offensive line is, I just used the word infantry. They are your infantry. They are the first line. And so you have that leader. I think you got to re-sign Tyler Linderbaum. You have a lot of leadership, and you need a voice that helps the leadership on your offense in the players to self-govern more. I think this offense has maybe become disjointed, quiet, reclusive about things, comments made kind of spottingly after losses. Oh, Ronnie Stanley saying we got to be our identity needs to be running the ball. Feels like that has been a primary error for the Ravens and their offense, not having unified leadership, messaging, and vision. And I think the players need to have a big part of that, depending on who the hire is. But it's disjointed. I do say, the best offense is every offense. I think you need to have everything in your tool belt. You got to go under center. You got to be able to go up tempo. You got to be able to go spread. You got to be able to attack with screens, downfield, quick passing game. Like, I look at the Seahawks. They are doing all of those things. A lot of under center game, but also a lot of shots, attacking the middle of the field, screens, all that stuff. So that can cause you to feel like you lose an identity when you don't have things you maybe hang your hat on, but you have to be diverse. And I'm just really curious about what happens with this offense. The comments he made about Lamar Jackson, the comments that Steve Bisciotti has made about Lamar Jackson through this process speak volume, him being involved in video conferences in this process. And from what they said today, also being involved still in the hiring of an offensive coordinator. We'll see how true those Diana Rossini comments were about Cliff Kingsbury, who we will get into a little later. If he's the guy, I don't know why he hasn't been hired yet. I know the reasons it would be, but to me, it's like, all right, let's get it done if that's the case. Not that I love Clint Kingsbury necessarily, but whomever it is. So yeah, he's calling plays. Yeah, that's why he's here. That's what we expected. And with that, is your offense going to be one that leads itself, or are you bringing in a leader of it? And I think that is imperative to already have figured out and have the players buy in on by this point.
And this is what he had to say on that part of the process and kind of where they're at in it so far.
Yeah, great question. I won't confirm any hires at this point. Both of those searches are going really well. They're very far along, I would say. We're finalizing a few of those pieces. I'm looking for leaders and connectors and relationship builders and schematic expertise. But most importantly, guys, that the players believe in. that they're willing to dive deep and build real strong relationships with the players. I think when they feel that it's collaborative and they feel that it's ours and not just the coaches and this is what the players do, this is what the coaches do, it's all of us. And so I'm excited about the people involved in those searches right now, and I look forward to sharing those in the near future.
So leaders, relationship builders, schematic expertise, he's again, we're throwing we're throwing the buzzwords out there, but and connectors, like there's that word again, connection. Like he's all about that stuff. We do have some names out there that have already kind of not yet been confirmed, but are reported to have been essentially locked down. That will be Mike Mickens, a young guy out of Notre Dame, who is being brought on as the defensive backs coach and defensive pass coordinator, which a lot of people are really juiced up about. Mike Golick Jr., who's very well connected with Notre Dame, said that's a great hire. And then Dwayne Ledford from the Falcons, who was the OL coach there. He's being named the OL coach and run game coordinator here, which I found interesting that if they have not yet hired their offensive coordinator. So I'm not sure if like the ink is dry on that one or like what's happening there, but that's another one that was really lauded due to, I think, what he was able to do with Bijan Robinson and everything last year, but sounds like it's already kind of being built out. And then as far as coordinator, you mentioned like expertise and kind of experience and that kind of stuff. Requested to interview Declan Doyle from the Bears, who has worked under Ben Johnson for the role. Scotty Montgomery from the Lions, passing game coordinator there. And then, Cliff Kingsbury has obviously been floating out there and a couple of other names. But, it sounds like they're relatively along in the process. And it's like, let's get on with this. Let's get some names in the building here.
Yeah, Declan there. I tweeted, I think, last night, let's get Declan up and moving around. Sounds like a SEC bullpen pitcher in name there. But an interesting one. I would be a little surprised. Kind of looks like Jesse Minter now that I'm looking at him as I'm searching him here. But has maybe not the most extensive experience overall. He's been in the NFL a couple of years, I think since 2019. So it's not like he's completely green. But, Davis Webb and Mannion, I think that the Eagles just hired Sean Mannion, the former Sean McVay, to bring him up for the 18th time in a week, backup quarterback that was there for a while, and bringing him in with very little coaching experience. So Doyle, a young guy, his age is unknown on Wikipedia, which I like that. I hope it stays that way. But he's an intriguing name, certainly. I don't know. If you're bringing a young guy, he can't really be a dick, right? Because what does he have to hang his hat on to come in and boss around Lamar Jackson and cause kind of tension for an effect? They've had too much tension. So bringing in a younger guy, I think, would be a wild card move that could blow up in your face, but having it be that kind of more collaborative, relatable guy that's excited and a little more, I don't know the right word. Todd Monken, congratulations to him. We haven't talked about him getting the Browns job. I love Todd's personality. We've gushed on this podcast about his piss and vinegar and kind of that salty old dog that he's been, the salty spittoon, cussing up a storm, going nuts after there was that kind of hit piece by the Baltimore Sun. He's dapping up freaking trippy kick outside the stadium and all that stuff. All of that was fun. But tension, frustration, this tightness has been so present in the offense for so long. A younger guy that can't oppose the players as much might be the move. Oppose, maybe a bad way of putting that, but that makes it exciting and collaborative and relatable.
Yeah, and we've talked about, like, when you've got Lamar, he's like effectively a co-offensive coordinator. Like, he's got just as much, when you're at that point in your career, when you've done what he's done and you still have the capabilities that he has, like, that gives you just as much sweat equity and, kind of respect within the room to be able to say, I want this play, I want that play. Like, Aaron Rodgers, wherever he's gone, for better and in the last couple of years, probably for worse, has been the offensive coordinator in New York and in Pittsburgh. Like, and that's just kind of the way it goes with veteran quarterbacks sometimes.
They need to like it, and they need to love it, and they need to feel good about it. And when they do, they get excited. When they get excited, they are so revered and respected. You meant some of those names you mentioned. When Aaron Rodgers is having a pissy day, the offense has a pissy day. Like, I talked about how the Ravens offense had become a reflection of Lamar's off-script playmaking, and I think that's gotten a little too loosey-goosey, not with him, but some of these younger, inexperienced guys let it fumbles, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers. I mean, Derrick Henry starts fumbling the ball like crazy, honestly. And I'm not saying it's that Lamar fumbles. I'm saying it's the kill shot they're always seeking sometimes leaves their, chest exposed or the football exposed, more literally. So I'm kind of in love with the idea of a younger guy that's more relatable and passing the torch to the quarterback. I think the Ravens are actually desperate for Lamar to do that. I think they made it pretty clear. I think they're desperate to have him at OTAs after this coach is hired and they make this big change after 18 years. I think they are almost just short of begging. Like they won't, maybe it's not that way because they don't want to appear weak or whatever. Steve's got the power and Lamar's got say, but I think they are desperate to get him at OTAs this year. And they desperately want him to be the vision. I know Flacco, there's always so much about Flacco and he's not that kind of guy. And he's not this rah-rah guy. I'm not saying you don't have to be a rah-rah guy, but be there, being a part of the deliberation and the collaborative process is what's needed to get this offense in the vision that Lamar should want for himself. And maybe he didn't feel comfortable. Maybe John's power stroke, maybe John and John's team and John's will. And that's why they brought John in to be strong-willed and fight Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Maybe this change enables Lamar Jackson to feel a little bit more open to the collaborative process than before. Some of that speculative, some of that I think we know, like that we know they want him at OTAs real bad. They want everybody at OTAs. And hey, maybe it's best for Lamar to reset and take his time and be in Florida with his family where he's comfortable and all that stuff. But I think this year they would do anything to get him there.
Yeah. And Steve did say in his press conference, like, hey, we want an extension done and we want it to be the same structure, but a lot more money for you. And that's the perfect kind of platform or venue for them to say, hey, we're going to do this for you. We'd love to do this, but maybe a little bit more buy-in, maybe being in there in OTAs, being a little bit more vocal. That's going to be part of it. You're now an elder statesman on this team effectively. And with this contract, we expect and we know that you're going to act like it. Like that. I feel like that would be the perfect kind of platform to bring those things up with. And I hope those conversations are productive and that's how it winds up.
Yeah, I mean, the parallels at this point between Brian Billick and John Harbaugh are just so present in my mind of why John was brought in to replace Brian, to provide more structure, I think, on one end of a different spectrum, so to speak. Like Brian let it get too loose and John was brought in to be the disciplinarian. And I think tension has arrived as a result of years of Harbaugh's team, Harbaugh's will, and that tension now needs to be cut. So it's kind of like this long wavelength that came back down the other end and is now at the valley. And Jesse's got to come in, get this offense excited. We're not breaking any news here, man. Who was it? Rappaport said, maybe it was Mike Garafolo said they want someone who's going to invigorate Lamar Jackson. Like, make football fun. Did Lamar Jackson look like he had a lot of fun this year? Hell no. Derrick Henry didn't look like he was having fun. And it's that weird thing. It's also nice because the expectation is so reset. Like, is there an expectation for Minter to win fast? Absolutely. But it basically became, like we talked about so many times, winning a regular season game brought very little joy. It was an expectation. And losing, because the expectations were so high, was avalanche of tension and frustration every single time. So having a younger guy come in and be so excited for that success, like the first game he wins, they're going to be through the fucking moon for him, that kind of thing again. And I think the simple fact that there was a change made can solve so much of what was holding them back. And not to say Minter's not a great hire. We talked about all that, but just change for the sake of change when it was needed.
Speaking of which, can we just, like NFL schedule makers, can you throw us a bone this year? Like, can we just get like a short par 4? Can we get a Browns at home at 1 p.m. this time? Because the last couple of years at Kansas City, at Buffalo, prime time, Mike and Chris, like the whole pageantry and, losing on the very last play. Like, I feel like that's emotionally scarring. Not to make excuses, but my God, that could be the reason why we're here right now with a new head coach. Come on, make it easy on him.
I love those games. I love when they come out of the gate with Mahomes and Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. I love when it starts hot and heavy. It's my favorite. That Bills game, the most angry I've been as a fan at a loss was the Bills game this year, week 1. That was the most angry I've been in a decade or more. That was too much drama, too much Greek tragedy for me.
Yeah, that was the year of like all of this, all the expectations, and it weighed on them all the way through to the end of the year when Taylor and I got in this studio after the Louque shank, and we were just laughing because it's like the infinite jest of the football gods, just a cruel joke after cruel joke until they landed the final blow right on the right side of my jaw and dislocated it, and I was just sitting there in a mangled heap. And I'm ready to move on from that, frankly. And today feels like a good step toward it, but. Enough with the woe is me nonsense. We're going to move on to Jesse Minter on one Kyle Hamilton, who he sounds very excited to work with.
Weapon. He is a positionless defensive player that I would classify as a weapon on defense. And so as much as you can do to get a guy like Kyle near the point of attack, I think is what you try to do as a designer, play caller. And so could not be more thrilled to be able to work with Kyle. I've had a couple really good conversations with him already. And I know he's excited, and I'm excited to work with him alongside all the really great players that we have in this organization.
Weapon, positionless player. I love my positionless safeties, and, hopefully other teams trying and failing to replicate that. Unfortunately, we've had one team do that, and they're playing in the Super Bowl in a few weeks with Nick Emmon-Mori. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to see what he can do with him, especially with his background with Derwin James. So, and it's also good to hear that they've kind of had conversations. I think Kyle was a part of that sort of cabal of veteran players that were involved in this process. So,
what do they call it? The leadership council. I like the cabal way better.
Yeah.
Mr. Mensa, Mr. All-American, Mr. Power 5 basketball recruit, 5-star safety, number 1 safety in his class, freshman All-American, first-round pick, All-Pro, All-Rookie, All-World. Has a lot of thoughts. And his monotone that he kind of has, and his kind of I don't know the right word, robotic laugh. That laugh he has is kind of one of those kind of he's kind of got some Kawhi Leonard to him a little bit.
A little Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah. One of those. I think Kyle Hamilton probably has more thoughts about scheme and change than anyone on this team, if I had to guess. And some of the ghastly, apoplectic press conferences that he did after they blew games and blew leads and couldn't get stops and turned the ball over and all those. He saw the worst of that. I think the scar tissue's there and tarnished the golden boy, gave him a little bit of scar tissue in that sense. So really excited to see what they do with Hamilton in a more proactive sense. The last 2 seasons have been so reactive with the shortcomings at safety with Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson, getting him back up high, taking him out of the box, and then the injury to Nnamdi Madubuike's butterfly effect is him having to play in the box and getting to a point with a scheme that I think is going to be more of a program, more of a system, more of a year-to-year with Jesse Minter consistency, as opposed to we let this guy go and that guy go and this guy hurt, and now we need to adjust this way and adjusting on the fly and be reactive and can't really thwart those big-time quarterbacks. I think that no one is going to be more excited for Jesse Minter than Kyle Hamilton when you hear Derwin James and Tony Jefferson, who you're familiar with, and all those DBs buzzing. I think Hamilton's got to be through the roof and is going to be unleashed truly more than we've seen. And I don't know, man. I think this team is going to turn the ball over more than they did, especially this past season. And I think Hamilton's going to be at the forefront of that and taking the ball away, ripping the ball out.
Yeah, let's get the guy a Defensive Player of the Year award. I feel like it's beyond time for that, and I feel like this is the perfect setup too. Schematically, we'll get into more of with some.
It's beyond time. Kyle's what, 25 now? I can't believe he hasn't had one.
Yeah, and it feels like he could have been.
24, not even. He's still 24.
It's insane. He's already been paid. Like it seems like the stars have aligned here, and I don't know. That's just something that's kind of the last pelt on the wall, other than a Super Bowl that he needs. So let's get that done. Moving on to some of the comments that we had from a certain general manager who was dressed in his best millennial kind of business casual Patagonia rancher style that drew your ire. He also had some comments that drew your ire, and we'll start with the first one here.
I heard Jesse's name as a possible candidate. It was hard for me to envision Jesse like he is because my experience was with Jesse primarily in the draft years ago when he was doing all the bottom guys on the draft board in the secondary, and I just didn't really ever think of him like that. But I know, and that's me being honest, I'm just you know, but like watching them last year, we played these guys last year and watching that defense, I'm like, damn, this is a good team. This is a really good defense. And Jesse's doing a hell of a job. And then I think for me, like as I started talking to people like Joe Ortiz or Tony Jefferson or Eric Weddle or other people that I talked to, even before I met on the Zoom with Jesse, my opinion started to change, just like it would with a player in the draft who maybe you see him playing against a bad team and he doesn't play that great or whatever it is, but then you watch him against better competition, he plays better and better and better and better, and you're like, this guy is really, really good. So I think it takes a whole process of accumulating information and really kind of removing all the biases that you have in your head.
I think that was the biggest load of bullshit. All right, number one, he might as well have given him a fucking swirly and a noogie. Oh, little bro. I didn't think he could be the head coach. Oh, okay. All right, Eric, in your cool waffle knit shirt. Sweet. Thanks. Jesse did start to shake his head, yes, a little bit. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but he that's what I was saying. Like he gave him a little side eye when he was like, oh, this guy could be the head coach, and he's like, okay, like.
See, that is why I think it's bullshit, because this was the most sham, fake, gigantic interview process in all of this coaching carousel. I think, like, I truly believe they knew they were going to hire Jesse Minter from the moment they let John Harbaugh go. Like, if not before. I think the existence of Jesse Minter probably gave them comfort in the exit of John Harbaugh. So I think a little bit of that was some fluff and lip service after giving him a swirly, wearing his casual outfit. After I talked to Eric Weddle, I know that this guy who we know really well he's capable of it. After I talked to the ice cream man with his beard, I now it all makes sense. Oh yeah, let's talk to Eric Weddle, who's such a fucking stud here, getting Jordan Howard trucking him in overtime, having Antonio Brown reach across the goal line. Oh, that's what really sent him over the edge. Yeah, okay, Eric. I'm sure Eric Weddle's comments were so imperative to know who Jesse Minter is, who coached here for a couple years and then's been over with Jim. Yeah, that's what really sold you, huh?
Well, we had John Harbaugh saying, I hope they hire you too. I mean, the stars just aligned.
I think he said should.
Should, yeah. You're right.
I think according to Jesse, John texted him and said the Ravens should make you the coach.
So this one hit my ear a little strangely when I listened to it at first as well. But I kind of came around to liking it because I said in our group chat, like it presupposed that like he wanted to avoid bias of a guy that had been in the building already. At least that's kind of how I'm choosing to optimistically read it, potentially. But it's like, yeah, like, this guy has already been here. We know about him, but he's got to come in here and he's got to, prove himself a little bit. And again, maybe I'm optimistically reading into that because I think you're right. There was always a leader in the clubhouse for this job, and it was the guy they wound up hiring. But I don't know. I kind of appreciate the candor there a little bit to say like, yeah, like, I don't know. Like we had to talk to a lot of guys and, we expected them to bring a certain level of je ne sais quoi and, kind of blow us away a little bit. And like my first impression of the guy maybe wasn't that he was going to do that, but he did. So I don't maybe that should inspire a little bit of confidence.
Bunch of lip service, noogies and swirlies. Thanks, Eric.
That's tough. You're really, man, the big time heel turn against your sweet bald prince.
I'm watching Eric. I'm watching this draft. I'm watching this free agency cycle. I'm watching this Lamar Jackson contract negotiation. And that what is the biggest takeaway maybe of this whole thing over this whole process over the last couple months? Anasi's comment here. What's funny is that Bisciotti made sure to tell ESPN that it's Eric's hire and he just approved it. So that's why I think that was a bunch of lip service, number one. And number two, Eric's running the damn show. The coach is fired, brought in Jesse Minter, who's ascending, familiar. I haven't heard the word genius thrown around as much as Mike McDonald gets it, but I think the players are the one that say it. Young, ascending, genius, who's ripe for the picking, perfectly tenured, experienced without having that retread, spoiled feeling. Okay, Eric, all of those things to me show it's your show in many, 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 many regards. Steve's giving you full autonomy here, more or less, with your team that you've put around yourself. And then electing to give the guy a little noogie and a swirly and talk about how little bro grew up. Never thought it reminded me of fucking John Barenthal whatever his name is in The Bear with Carmi. Like, oh my God, you grew up to be a Michelin star chef? What the heck? I didn't think you could run my freaking beef shop.
Now, is this? I feel like are we on the correct timeline here? Because I feel like he might have already passed away when Carmi got the Michelin star.
It was just the vibes, though. It was the vibes of. No, he hadn't passed. I don't think he had passed away when Carmi was already all successful.
Okay.
But regardless, Carmi was already chefing it up in New York by the time John.
Joel McHale was just abusing him. Like Joel McHale was Jim Harbaugh in this situation.
I suppose so. But all that to say, like I'm watching Eric. We've been saying build the wall since Trump was elected 2021. We've been saying build the wall since 2021 regarding the Ravens offensive line in a apolitical sense, and they haven't done it. You fired John really for not building the wall. You trusted John to get the wall in place. They took a step back. That is the loudest criticism and failure, I would say, at this point. You got your 1,000-yard receiver. What did that do? Nothing different. And I'm watching you, Eric.
They gotta start funding the Night's Watch. They got to start giving them more competent men. They got to start taking them more seriously. We don't know what's going on beyond the wall, okay? But like if what we think is going on around there, it's not going to matter who's sitting on the Iron Throne if what we think is happening is true.
I agree. So, Sir Eric the Tall.
A lot of people call me stupid.
And so, I don't know. I didn't love any of that. I'm not loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm watching, waiting, commiserating. Eric. This is the first time. So prove me wrong. I mean, I really have given him, I've had so much faith in him and so much faith in the Ravens and them being the classy, smartest in the room, innovators that have all these different models they use and all this stuff, yada, 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 yada. Got another top 15 pick. And I will say, last time you had one of those, you got Kyle Hamilton, who we just talked about. So better be another home run. Better get the offensive line fixed and get this all in a better spot. You've had a long runway. You're not in the playoffs. They don't have all this wear and tear. The Bills have a little more wear and tear. The Chiefs had so much wear and tear that they tore completely. The Eagles, all these teams that you've maybe not quite played just as many games against, but you're in the playoffs. You're playing these primetime games. You're playing these high leverage games. I don't know, man. I'm watching. I'm watching, Eric. This is a momentous offseason moving forward and righting some wrongs with this change in place.
Yeah, and last thing I had was Eric talking a little bit about how that dynamic is going to look. I think it echoed a little bit with what Steve had to say about what the head coach and general manager partnership was previously with John Harbaugh, but here he is kind of expounding upon it.
Thing I think that this organization, we've had a lot of success in a situation where the head coach and the general manager are partners and both report to the owner. I mean, we won 2 Super Bowls that way. And we've won a lot of games that way, and we believe in that system, working together, fighting together, and figuring things out together. And so I'm very proud of my relationship with Coach Harbaugh. And I started out at the bottom as well, like Jess, back as a player personnel assistant. And I was blessed to watch Ozzie with Coach Marchabroda and Coach Billick and Coach Harbaugh. For me, that became the standard, and that's what I aspire to, and I believe Jesse feels the same way.
Yeah, we didn't mention Eric's opening comments, a little bit of a Drake reference. He started from the bottom, now he's here, which I know that probably stuck in your craw as well, but as I see you shaking your head. Yeah, but it sounds like going to be similar structure. Head coach and general manager have equal power, and then Bisciotti is going to be the deciding vote here, and that's something that we talked a little bit about on the pod a week ago when Minter got hired, is that Costa, like, to me, he is a little bit on the hot seat here because, you roll into a season with minimal upgrades at edge outside of a second round pick that you thought was, hopefully going to have an Alden Smith impact. He didn't have anything close to that. You continue to moneyball the guard position, letting Kevin Zeitler walk and just allowing for Daniel Faalele and Andrew Voorhees to be your solutions there, which didn't wind up being much of any solution at all. You got to start getting more serious about those positions. And I think, like, I don't know. I hope Minter is recognizing that and going to be able to bring some good influence on players that he think will work for him. And like, frankly, like we got a question in here. Would you guys rather have an elite guard or an edge from Michael Collard? Give me the guard. Because like, if you're going to bring in this defensive guy who's going to call the plays, who's getting great football out of a Khalil Mack, who's in his mid 30s at this point, who by the way, could be a target for you this offseason. Go and get the guard, let the talent be kind of the buttress there for you on that side. And then Minter is being brought in to raise the floor on the other side. So I don't know. Like, I feel like it sounds like they're confident that it is going to be a partnership. I think you're right that like Costa at this point, like it's kind of on him now. Like he is the senior voice in this partnership, whether it is a real partnership or not. And I believe that they're going to try to practice it that way. He is the senior voice here. He's a little bit older. He's been with the organization longer. He's got the sweat equity and the blood ties. Minter's kind of the new guy here, and I think he's going to be looking to him for guidance. So a little bit more pressure on Eric for sure.
Decade of Lamar Jackson being, according to Jesse Minter, the best player in the world. And I think they do have a lot to show for it, but not that incredibly much. And I just find overall, to maybe divert a little bit, the parallel between the Bills and the Ravens to be so interesting. And looking back through the years at some of these eras, like through the Cowboys and 49ers and their success in the 80s and 90s, and some of these other quarterbacks, you look at Elway and some of these other ones that couldn't get through those teams to win and win Super Bowls and, accomplish the ultimate goal, so to speak. And then looking at, there was a skit that a gentleman on Instagram did that Sam Darnold kind of tying it all together a little bit with Allen and Jackson specifically, gentleman by the name of Biggie.Bailey, like as if the script was written before the draft. It was like, hey, Lamar, like you're going to win 2 MVPs. They want you to be a running back or a wide receiver, like all this stuff. And he's like, so I'm going to go to a Super Bowl. And he's like, no, sorry, buddy. And then Josh Allen's like, well, then what about me? He's like, oh, you're basically the white version of Lamar, like unbelievably talented. You're going to win an MVP. He's like, so Lamar didn't get there, so I'm going to get there. He's like, no, I'm sorry. And then Baker's like, well, what about me? He's like, I'm so sorry you're going to the Browns. And then Darnold asks, like, am I the one? He's like, well, you start on the Jets, go to the Panthers, the 49ers, the Vikings, and the Seahawks in your first 8 years. He's like, oh my God. He's like, but you're the one who goes to the Super Bowl. So just kind of that whole quarterback class, that all playing out is so interesting, man.
Kind of almost a biblical story in there.
Very much so.
Listen, it's not about how you start. I guess it's about how you finish. Right.
So Mahomes beaten up, got Drake May and Bo Nix's teams in the AFC Championship. Who would have thought that would be the case at this point? Joe Burrow, you think about as well. And the great Shakespearean story of all these different families, quarterbacks, so to speak, to not have these successes despite the acclaim and the fame. And Garner here says, shout out Josh Rosen, who chosen Rosen.
Killing it in the private equity space, I believe, right now.
Only one with an MBA from Wharton out of that group.
Yeah.
There we go. So, yeah, the dueling parallels of the Bills and Ravens, really interesting. Interesting to see Minter come in at this time amidst it. And man, so overall, the question, I don't know how I got on that, to be honest, but the question was edge or guard. Elite edge. I'm saying, what are we saying? Top 5 guard, top 5 edge. I'm taking the edge. I'm taking the sack master. I'm taking, I don't know what Danielle Hunter's been. Maybe he's kind of right. That top 5 edge, something like that. I'm taking Danielle Hunter over, I don't know, who's the 5th best guard? Quinn Myers, maybe, who got beat up a little bit by Christian Barmore late in that game. But
quite a game for him.
Yeah, I'm taking the elite edge. I'm taking Danielle Hunter there. I'm taking that player. And so much of it, man, ultimately does fall on who is available in free agency, which I think is tricky. And it's easy with this like quick, breezy Twitter conversations we get into, like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. Go back and look who was available. And sometimes it is a little tough. So I'll give them grace in that regard, but not enough was done. And I think the result sometimes has to speak. And for a team that has talked so much about being process oriented, I think they've become aware of their own mortality in that, in saying, that's what Steve said. Like I pride myself on Aerotech being process oriented. Same thing here, But at the end of the day, it is results. And when you have years and years of results and they're the same thing, drives you crazy. Got to look at your process as a failure in a way.
Yeah, definitely. So any more thoughts on the presser before we do a quick closeout with some of the moves in the AFC North?
Man, wasn't fancy, nothing fancy today, but I did like what Minter had to say about Lamar, about the offense. I like that he's calling plays that was expected. And you mentioned Mickens and some of these hires that they have in place. I think the ability to have such stability, have an MVP quarterback, have a couple pieces around, some experience, some leaders, some younger guys. There's going to be a lot of turnover on this roster this year. That's why I think this is such a big offseason. Likely's probably gone. We'll see if they bring back Kohler, Ricard. I mean, go look at the defense. God only knows what that looks like next year with Matabike's situation. Falele's gone, free agent. So a lot of turnover. There should be, I don't know, man, 8 new starters, I would think, at least next year. Let's see what happens at the cornerback position. Let's see what happens at the tight end position, the guard positions, the edge positions, middle linebacker. Teddy Buchanan tore his knee. Let's see what happens at safety next to Kyle Hamilton. Alohi Gilman's out. Ardarius Washington, I believe, is a free agent. They have Malachi Starks, and they're going to need someone else. So at that kind of safety nickel position, which has become so prevalent, like where are you going to bring in there? How are you going to make the impact? Ted Nguyen writing an article. So this is the end of the beginning of, I think, the most important offseason in, I'll say, Ravens history, man. Like, especially post 2012 Super Bowl. Like since then, since the Billy Cundiff missed field goal, this is the most important offseason since that year, I would say. So last year was run it back. It failed. You ran it back. You returned how many starters? I don't know, 19 or so starters. And we're 8-9. You smelled your own farts. So had to open up the window, let the air out. And sorry to call John a fart in that sense, but John is out. Minter is in. Got a lot of work to do. And this is just the beginning. Like Jerry's and Joe's, X's and O's. It's the Jerry's and Joe's, man. And I think we're at maybe a little bit less of a quarterback-centric point in football than especially we were a few years ago. I think the quarterbacks that are coming into the NFL are taking a lot longer to be successful or unable to sustain success. And you've got a really good one. So difficult water to navigate, I think, in this changing NFL landscape. Offense needs to figure out a way to strike back. You hire a defensive coach at a defensive time and got to nail this OC hire, got to nail this draft, got to nail this free agency. You got the 14th pick and a little bit of cash to spend, hopefully a lot more if Lamar extends like they want him to. It's time to make a lot of moves fast and hard.
Indeed, fast and hard. You gotta take that approach into this offseason, and I agree with you entirely on all the points that you made. And before we close it out here, I just wanted to whip it around the AFC North a little bit. You mentioned Todd Monken, somewhat surprisingly getting the job there in Cleveland after a prolonged interview process with Jimmy Haslam right at the center. That's just exactly what you want to hear if you're a Browns fan. They're just deep into interviews with Nate Scheelhaus out there in LA, going round and round with him, taking personality tests, things of that nature, and it's going to be either Scheelhaus, the exciting young guy, or it's going to be Jim Schwartz, right? Who's going to keep this defense together, and maybe it'll be a rebuild year. And then they take a bit of a left turn with our boy Todd Monken, who we love, as you mentioned, who had been in the interview process, but it didn't really seem like he had picked up any steam into the kind of waning hours of that process. They hire Monken. I guess my read on it was that that was the get the offensive guy, and then that can allow us to keep Schwartz in the building as the defensive guy. Apparently Jim Schwartz stormed out of the building when this was announced. He was not thrilled, and he's still under contract with them, but he wants to get out of it and leave. So I don't know. I feel like that could be a good hire with them, at least a good bridge hire. We'll see what happens with the quarterback position there. But mixed reviews on that one at best. And then obviously we love to see what happened in Pittsburgh. They went and got the hometown kid in Mike McCarthy. Just a huge move. They'll get to bring Aaron Rodgers back in the fold, run this thing back together. I think we got a 10-win floor there, maybe an 11-win ceiling. Thrilled to see that happen for the Steelers.
A lot of moves. Bengals don't make any. and everyone else in flux. Like you said, Jim Schwartz storming out. To me, I think Jim Schwartz is known for having a little bit of an edge and being, in some tough spots for sure. But to me, I think that speaks to probably, not great to say, probably some things that the Haslams said. And by Haslams, I mean Jimmy Haslam probably told Jimmy Schwartz, setting some maybe improper expectations there, and those expectations not being met. So I would kind of call Todd Monken the offensive Jim Schwartz. I think personality wise and really play calling and personnel wise a little bit, the Browns use loaded boxes a lot more than a lot of the top defenses, considering they were a top defense, but able to have a unit that did a lot well. And yeah, man, Monken's tenure here. I know the graphics going around that during his 3-year tenure, the Ravens were third in points, first in rushing yards, third in EPA, I think, and had a really successful tenure. And everyone's going, hey, the Browns don't have Lamar Jackson. We'll see what happens with Deshaun Watson. Is that going to be their week 1 starter? I think, yeah. If I had to guess, Deshaun Watson is the week 1 starter. He's gotten to heal up for a long time. He returned to practice. They still have him on the books. So Toddy Boy might be getting Deshaun Watson. And for as big of a fucking weird, I don't know, probably horrible person as he's been off the field, the dude has been an incredible football player and passer. And I'm not shocked to see him play some somewhat inspiring football after a long break. I wouldn't be completely shocked, but after such a long break, it would be a little bit unprecedented for a quarterback to kind of reach that high, have such a weird series of events, including his own horrible things that he reportedly did off the field, and returns. So tough go for Toddy Boy, who, if you're from I know a lot of people from Cleveland, and I work with a lot of people from Cleveland, and man, like that dude, Cleveland's going to love the guy, Todd Monken, and the way he represents himself and will represent the Browns. And for all those things, there's a clip circulating that, he's this old school guy. He's not. He loves analytics. He modernized the Ravens offense. What he did at Georgia was incredible. That's why I was so excited by that hire. And I think he plays his player strengths offensively so well. So, man, a really interesting hire there. And with what's going on in Pittsburgh, what's going on in Cleveland, the Ravens looking like the stable, normal ones amidst some odd, weird events. Overall, the AFC North is in a strange place after probably being the best division in football for years and years. Clearly, that's the NFC West at this moment, probably for a few moments. And yeah, we'll see what this AFC North turns into.
Yeah, totally. Excited to see how it all plays out, especially Pittsburgh. Like, I know their fans are pissed, and I probably would be too, because it feels like, man, like we let Mike Tomlin walk out of the building to just hire Mike McCarthy, who, I've been joking about it a lot on Twitter. I was joking about it before. Like, I don't know, like the guy could probably win 8 games for you, like at least. He's been a competent coach, and a lot of people have made the point that if he looked like John Harbaugh, he'd probably command the respect that John Harbaugh has, or if he was a little more outgoing and had more of a dynamic personality. So I don't know, it just feels like that one feels like a bit of a same old Steelers hire with Art Rooney, just trying to keep competency and keep stability. And then with the Browns, like you mentioned Todd, like I feel like a lot of their fans are pissed right now, but they are going to like him from a personality standpoint. And I don't know. I just hope he's not being like thrown to the wolves here and like what I was saying, a rebuild year, and maybe they take another crack at the kind of coaching cycle next year, and maybe they try to get a quarterback in a year where they were not able to get the top pick and just go get lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels with Mendoza, and then obviously Dante Moore not coming out this year. So yeah, certainly a couple of we'll sees, but you mentioned the AFC North being in a state of flux and the Bengals not doing much. Like, that all sets up pretty well for Jesse Minter. And I know this Ravens roster has questions that EDC is going to have to answer for, but this could be a promising year 1. And back to my earlier point, let's get a little bit of an easier schedule here and allow them to maybe go and do that and rebuild my confidence, if nothing else. That's what I need. It's been a rough year for me sports wise.
Ravens still get the second place schedule, which I don't know, the parity that this league has achieved. I'll give Roger that. And Seahawks, Patriots in this Super Bowl, a decade after it occurred is a chef's kiss, and what the NFC Championship was. Rams, Seahawks, Patriots, Broncos. The fact that all of those quarterbacks we mentioned weren't in it in the AFC, weren't even in the championship game. No, who would have thought? Was truly confounding. So I don't know that this Super Bowl will be very hyped up as opposed to maybe Eagles Chiefs last year or some of these other ones. I wouldn't be surprised if ratings fell a little bit shorter than usual. But man, the parity is high, and with that, the parity in the AFC North is high. With that, I don't know, maybe in the back of my mind, there's some fear that the Ravens, who have been so stable, and I think Ravens fans, honestly, I agree with Kyle Hamilton. I said it then, I'll say it again. Like, we've been spoiled with a lot of wins. They have won a lot of games. They've won 2 Super Bowls this millennium, which is what, 3rd most Super Bowls, 3rd most wins in the 2000s as well. They have been a stable, successful franchise that just made a huge change, has a quarterback that has a huge cap hit that they need to figure out, and they need to begin the process of aging him gracefully. And it sounds like they're committed to it, but easier said than done. While this league has so much parity, while the product is what it is, and I'm curious how these next 5 years look. The Jesse Minter era, love the hire, love the mind, love the way he represents himself. I'm watching you, Eric, and man, the next era is upon us.
The next era is upon us indeed. So fun episode going over Jesse Minter's press conference, all the ins and outs of it. His first day on the job here, effectively at the castle, as we got Broccoli Boy saying he hates the socialism of the NFL sometimes. Listen, that, from each according to his needs, to each according to, however that goes. That's Roger Goodell, Roger Mamdani. And yeah, listen, you can criticize it all you want, but evidently it's working for this league that continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and get, whatever. But I don't know. But yeah, again, fun episode. Appreciate everyone hanging with us here in the comments section, and appreciate everyone listening after the fact. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe to us here on YouTube. Find us on social media at Exit 52 Podcast on X. And I'm going to keep calling it X, and I'm going to keep saying how much I love the platform, because my personal account at Jake Louque no longer exists, or at least it does in some form or fashion. I've been trying to get it back. I've been writing appeals. They've continued to be denied. And if anyone knows anyone at X that can help me, hit me up in the DMs at Exit 52 Podcast. You can find Spenny there at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4. Brian at Barstool Banks. Eric at EDITTI22. Fun episode, hopefully coming on Monday between me, Eric, and a little interview, hopefully, with a certain Orioles-based guest, and Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. We appreciate you all very much, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.
Roger Mandami, correct me. Oh boy. See ya.
Yeah, he's going to get the subways running on time. Fast and free buses.